Hello, hello, everyone, and welcome to another incredible episode and show. This is a special one. I've got an incredible client on today with me. Katherine, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Pleasure to be here. I'm very excited too.
Yeah, well, and I just got so giddy because you obviously graduated from the program a little while ago, and it's been many, many weeks since we've seen each other. So it feels like a joyful reunion for me to get to be with you and do this interview. So if you're watching live, of course, say hello, give a warm welcome to Katherine. And Katherine, I am so happy to have you share your wisdom with everybody listening today. So, okay, where do we start? So I'm going to kick us off by sharing what you said was how you started. So you came to us. You graduated a little while ago, but you came to us many months ago. It was about five months ago is when you originally scheduled your breakthrough call, and you and I had our very first conversation. And I'm just going to read this little paragraph just because I think it does such a great job describing where you were. You said, when I joined the program, I was ready to burn it all down and run away. I was feeling like I had nowhere to go to express how stressed out and hopeless I was feeling. I never made time for my family, and my husband and I were essentially roommates because I was too tired. I was angry at work. I couldn't see anything positive about any aspect of my life. And my biggest fear was failing at the thing that defined me, my career and my position in this industry within work. I was working 12 to 14 hours a day, including most weekends, and I had no time for anything other than work, and no matter what I did, it was never enough. So, wow. And
Wow.
for those of you who are watching this, you can see that it is very far from the woman who sits in front of us today. But Katherine, if you could tell us about where you are today, the woman you are now after having really gone on this journey, because it is a journey, which we'll talk about more soon. Who are you now?
So I am more calm and grounded and focused on really working towards my purpose in life and less focused on being defined by work as who I am. Work is so important. I still work hard and I still show up every day, but I'm really a lot more kind of focused on the things that bring me joy and also being who I really am in life and being the best mom and wife and just getting out into the world and enjoying life. Big difference.
It's such a big difference, honey. And I really like that you said that you were defined by work, because I know that's so true for a lot of the women watching and listening. You were sharing a little bit with me before that everyone in your life is noticing. You were having a conversation with your sisters last night, and what did they say to you again?
They said you seem so calm and in control and you have a plan for your life and it's such a marked difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I know your husband notices.
Yes. Yes, he definitely does.
Yeah, yeah.
We're spending a little more time together and just getting out and having fun together, and so it's a big difference.
So let's talk about that before and that after, because it's very true. We're going to talk about the journey you took to get there, because your journey is different than the other women who've gone through the program, and you've got some true wisdom to share with everybody listening.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what I'm curious about is this whole, like, when you came to us, being defined by your work, which is something we hear from high achieving, successful women all the time. Did you even know you were doing that before you came to us? Like, is that something you were aware of before?
I had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea how I defined my self-worth and what love was
Mm-hmm.
and what really living a real life was and how everything that I defined myself was wrapped around my job and my career, everything.
Why do you think we do that? And I know that you can't speak for every woman, and I can only speak for myself and, you know, the women that I've researched. But in your case, from what you know about yourself, and even from what you've seen being in group with other women, why do you think super ambitious, successful women, you have a very successful job in a very big company, and you know all the things? Why do you think we do that? How do we get our worth tangled up with our work?
For me, it was really in how I was raised and the belief system that I had. And really, I know now that my mother was very much, you must be a strong, independent woman and not rely on anyone else for your living, and anything less is failure. And my dad, and I learned, because he passed away while I was on this course, that it really has been apparent to me that his definition of value and worth was in your career and how much money you made and how successful you were, not the type of human that you were. And so everything I was doing was striving to please both of them. And that was what love was for me.
Mm-hmm. You said that so beautifully. And I have a very similar story. Many of the women have similar stories in some capacity, whether we're trying to get that love and belonging from our parents or our biological units, or it's a societal thing, right? Or it's simply how we've come to define ourselves. You know, one of the things that you and I were talking about before we got on this call was the judging of self.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about, you know, you came to us and your whole identity was wrapped up in your work, and you were losing yourself. Your marriage was flat. You know, your health was suffering. You had no hobbies. You were exhausted. Nothing. You were not in a good mental or physical place, emotional, mental, physical place. On top of all of that, there's some self-talk that's going on, that always goes on. Again, that you may or may not be aware of, or we may not be aware of until we're aware of it. So tell us a little bit about the self-judgment that was running the show for you until you realized what was really going on. Will you openly share with some of those inner critic thoughts for you?
Yeah, my inner critic is called Lucy.
Mm-hmm. We name our inner critics, by the way, when we work together. We become very clear on who the inner critic is.
Yeah, and I never realized how caught up you get with ego and how it really rules your life if you let it. And the voice, it's still today, I have this voice inside my head as soon as I wake up. It's trying to say, today you're going to fail. And I have learned to turn it off and tell it to go away and really to recognize it. I didn't realize how it was controlling everything I did and actually setting me up to fail. And it becomes self-fulfilling. So, what you tell yourself, you believe. And so when you can recognize that, one, that the voice exists, and two, that it's really driven by this crazy ego that's driving you to do things that aren't really real, and you start to recognize it and tell it to just be quiet so that you can really listen and hear what's right for you. It's for me, that is the most life-changing thing that I learned in this course, is to just really listen in and not let that voice take over.
Let's talk about that to make that even more practical for some of the women watching and listening to this. So when you came to us, you had no idea that there were these inner critic thoughts that were happening all of the time for you.
Yeah.
And if anybody, let's just be super for women who don't know you, if they had seen you on the outside, would anyone have ever guessed that you were feeling some of the imposter, some of the self-judgment? Would anybody have ever really guessed that if they didn't know you?
Not at all. I am happy-go-lucky. I smile all the time. I'm the one that uplifts other people in meetings and moments, and I'm the one that people come to talk to for advice. And, that I was always told that I'm like the calming force. And, nobody had any idea that I had all this inner turmoil, and I really felt like an imposter, and like I couldn't, just waiting for somebody to figure out I didn't know what I was doing,
Totally.
and that I wasn't good enough.
Totally. And I remember that experience so much when I was working on Wall Street too. Like I'd look around and be like,
Yeah.
you're going to find me out at some
Yeah.
point, right? And you heard that was very true for many of the other women who were in the course at the same time. These successful women, right? Who are the ones that hold it together, who are so capable and so badass. And on the inside, they're looking around wondering when they're going to be figured out. There's the imposter syndrome. There's the self-doubt and the self-criticism. That was happening underneath the surface for you.
Yes.
For a long time. Which, of course, then drives us to try to work harder and then prove ourselves, right?
Exactly.
So let me ask you a question just to make this practical for people listening. You mentioned that one of the greatest things you received from this work is moving from being driven by the inner critic to then being able to listen and hear, right? Your inner wise woman, your intuition, to not be driven by that, to be able to have more control over it, to tell it to calm down, to not buy into it. But that whole thing is a journey in and of itself. What's the first step? If you were to say to somebody listening, be like, okay, well, that sounds great. I definitely have that, smack talker going on all the time. I didn't know that wasn't normal.
Yeah.
What's the first step for a woman? What would you say to start breaking that habit of being a slave to the inner critic?
The thing that I have learned and have adopted is a morning ritual. And that is, I write this down. I've written down everything that, Julie, that you've said in like little quotes, all sticky notes all over the place. But really that, how you start your day is how you live your day.
Yes.
And when you start, because every day my inner critic says, you're not good enough and it's going to be a bad day. And through a morning ritual of breathing and positive, gratitude, and it's 3 minutes long or 5 minutes long, it just sets me on a completely different path for the day. Power poses, I do my strong woman pose every morning with my breathing, and it just is remarkable how just that breathing and taking the moment to pause and just remain calm and think positively makes such a huge difference.
It's so huge. So everyone, I just want to make sure you really heard the simplicity, right? It's simple. It's not easy, but the simplicity of what you're saying is that, and this is why we do this at the very first module in the program. We develop a bare minimum morning practice for every woman in the program. How are you going to connect with yourself before those voices start? And so, Katherine, what you're saying is that we all have voices. We all have those inner critic voices. We're all, in some ways, we look for the negative, right? And when we're in that burnout cycle, when we're in that downward spiral and in that funk, it is so easy to get taken down by that hopelessness, right?
Yeah.
And so what I hear you saying is that the way that you've learned to pull yourself from that is not just hope it goes away, right? But you've developed new tools and new practices that you do consistently to help you hear yourself beyond the kind of inner critic chatter. Right?
Yes.
And one of those is breathing. And then, of course, I teach you different poses and different breath techniques and all of that. So so everybody who's listening, right, it can be that simple. It can be that simple. Katherine, if somebody's listening right now and is like, yeah, but let's talk about that part of you that, when you started the program, because now we're seeing you so many months afterwards, right? And you've integrated so much of this, and we're all feeling your zen and your calm and your confidence.
Mm-hmm.
But you weren't confident at the beginning, right?
No.
So tell us a little bit about that first, of just kind of how you went on this journey to reclaim your confidence, whether it's what you did in the program, either tools, steps you took, or anything that you feel like you know now What was the journey of really rebuilding your self-trust and confidence in yourself?
I would say I'm still a work in process.
Indeed.
I work on it every day.
Mm-hmm.
It was really, I mean, it was definitely trusting the process of this course. And the first couple of kind of steps, your inner voice and you're resistant and kind of afraid of what you're going to encounter. And it's just small steps forward. It's just doing one small thing and doing, one piece of the module and learning and showing up for yourself and giving yourself the time and the permission and also not being afraid to be vulnerable. I think that's the biggest thing is, I came in with my shoulders up around my ears and afraid of what was to come. And I saw my co-ladies who all came in, each of us the same, really cowered down and tightened up and don't talk to me and I hope Julie doesn't ask me a question. And for me, it was just the being real and showing up for myself and really just doing the work at whatever pace I could do it and, giving myself permission to not get it all done, but committing to get it done, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear a lot here, and I'm going to recap it. One of my great gifts, as you know, is to be able to be like, okay, and do. Now we're going to do these dots, and these are going to be the things. So what I heard you say that was just so beautiful is that the first thing you did was that you chose yourself.
Yeah.
You chose yourself. The words you used were show up for myself.
Yeah.
Truly, that is the threshold that every woman, whether she gets on one of the free breakthrough calls or joins the program, right? Or whenever there's a call for us to change in our lives and we feel like we find the right teacher or the right path, we have to choose ourselves. We can't do it alone, but we have to do it ourselves.
Yes.
So that's huge what you just said, that you showed up for yourself. I could not make you do that. You had to be committed, more committed to your future, right, than your past and your pain.
Yes.
Okay, so does everybody hear that? That is non-negotiable, that no matter where you are or what you do, you've got to be committed to yourself.
Yes.
And your future self more than your present self, right?
And feeling worthy of it.
Yeah, say more about the worthiness piece, and then I'm going to keep going down with your numbers. But how does worthiness connect with showing up for yourself in something like this?
I think women in general, and all to different degrees, are sacrifice a lot. Giving and caring, and some of us more than others. And I think there's a lot of, for me, I didn't feel like I deserved to give myself the time and space to do the work, that I was just going to have to suck it up and get on with it because I'm a strong, independent woman and I shouldn't have to do this work. And feeling like I deserved to invest financially as well as time and the effort in myself versus doing my work or spending time with people or doing other things.
Yeah. That's a very interesting piece. I deserve to invest in myself, and I'm worthy of this. That's one thing. And then there's this other thing that you're speaking to, which is, I'm a strong and independent woman. I should be able to figure this out on my own.
That's right.
Which is why everyone comes into the program with their shoulders up and backs against the wall with their hair on fire. So yeah, you are a strong and amazingly capable woman. And you were in a group with strong and incredibly capable, amazing, independent women. We've all been raised that way. And one of the things we often talk about in the program is the same qualities that led to our success will lead us to burnout, will lead us to the downfall, right? Yeah. Which is how you came in and how many of the women come in. It's like, well, I've been doing it my way and it's not working.
Yeah.
What do you think it took for you personally, Katherine, and maybe anyone who's listening who's really resonating with this? Like, I should be able to figure it out on my own. And then there's that inner critic being like, oh, you suck for not, something's wrong with you if you can't figure it out on your own. Those are all really common things if anybody's thinking them. What helped you get over that and choose to invest in support, to hire a mentor, to hire a coach? What helped you get over that belief?
I should probably tell the story of how I signed up for the course. It will lead down. It will make sense in a bit. So I was really afraid to join the course. I was afraid to make the investment financially. I was afraid to force a sacrifice on the behalf of my husband and everything else to like invest and take the time. So much so that I signed up and I didn't tell my husband. And I was afraid to tell him. And I live, near New York. I was in New York for work that day. And I emailed him just to explain why I signed up. And I was like, oh my goodness, what is he going to say? Like, it's going to be an argument. It's going to be like, he's going to freak out. And he sent me the loveliest text and said, I got you. And whatever you need, I'm here for you. And I think that was the first time in my life, and I think I told you this, Julie, that I felt like the analogy, I was like that fallback test where you fall back and somebody catches you, and I've never felt like I've had that. That was a pivotal moment, knowing that he had my back and that it was going to be okay, and I was worthy of doing this. It's incredible.
I love this so much, Katherine. I could hear you share it 15 times and like always get chills when you say it and never get tired of it. That the fallback test, right? The surrender test. And what I think is so important to highlight, and I know I've said this to you in some way before, but I want to say it now publicly for other women to hear, is you didn't go to your husband to ask him to show you are worthy.
Right.
By saying it was okay to do this, right?
Yeah.
In part, you walked through this threshold of saying, I'm going to claim this for myself first.
Yeah.
I choose that I'm worthy. Even if I don't totally believe it yet, even if I'm not 100% sure what this, even if you didn't know, there was a choice you made to value yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Then to be able to go to your husband and say, here's why. And to be like, oh, honey, I support you. I love you. I value you too. For him to reflect that worthiness. But what I think is so potent about this for you, Katherine, and for so many women, is that you didn't go to him seeking permission or even buy-in. You chose it for yourself first. And then the trust fall happened.
Yeah.
Right? What do you think what does that mean to you when I even reflect that?
Well, and I think it's funny because I've never thought about it that way. Mm-hmm. But it's very, very true. And it was also that I didn't trust or didn't realize that somebody actually has my back and that I can relax and lean on somebody else. And so, I think for me, it was like such a huge thing for me to just make the decision on my own and not seek permission. But it was also that it was an epiphany for me that, I married this man and I still wasn't 100% trusting that he was going to be always there for me. It was just, such an important lesson.
Yeah. And even that piece played into the rest of your program, right?
Yeah.
Like, what did you notice in that pattern of either at first not trusting, not being able to let go of control, and then what was your experience like even being in the program of allowing yourself to be supported, allowing yourself to do that trust fall back with me, with the women, with the team?
Yeah.
How did that really set you up for this lesson of trust and surrender?
Well, I think there's a couple things. One is, you're really good and have an innate intuition of, when checking in, right? And so you taught me to show up for myself, but also to be, to be there for everybody else, and that wasn't like necessarily sacrificing myself. I think part of that is, just seeing how important it was to be an influence on others and to share and to trust and to be vulnerable with other people that I, immediately had respect for because these amazing women and, obviously successful, all going through this together, and the importance of sharing and just being open and vulnerable. It's such a powerful part of the course, but also just leaning, emailing you more often, trusting advice from other people and like asking for help is huge.
Yeah. So the first thing you said, I'm going to recap, is you showed up for yourself. Okay?
Yeah.
The second thing we're talking about now is you learn to ask for support and let it in, whether that was from your husband or from me or from the other women, right? So for all of you tracking this, number one, you've got to show up for yourself. Number two, you've got to ask for help. You also need the accountability and the support, right? This is why reading a book is very different than working intimately with a mentor or a coach, right? It's different. So you had the support, you had the accountability, and then being vulnerable
Mm-hmm.
and being willing to not have all the answers. And that's really big for women like us, right?
Yes.
What did you learn? I talk about it a lot, like you empty your cup and you let it be filled again, right? You have to learn a different way because the way that you've been doing it got you here. So if you want to do it differently, you have to do a different way. What helped you get over that fear of like being vulnerable enough to be open to learning a different way, to be open to coaching, to be coachable? Anything you would want to say for those women out there who are so used to always being the one people go to, the one who has all the answers? How did you start trusting that other people could guide you?
I would say I still struggle with it, but I saw the benefit of other women in the course who were past me, who were getting ready to up level, and just seeing how vulnerable and open they were and how at peace they were and how loving they were with each other. That was a really good influence on me, but also you just have to take one step forward, and trust the one email to you, or just asking somebody for help and seeing what happens, and not ready to fail at that either, right? Like, people may disappoint you, but it's okay. But most people will show up for you.
Yeah. I remember when I think you wrote that in our group at some point of I'm surprised by how when I really ask, people show up. Show up. I haven't been asking.
Yeah.
And I know that happens for a lot of really successful, capable women, because somewhere along the line, whether it happened in our childhood or teens or 20s or 30s or 40s or 50s, we really learned that we could only trust ourselves and rely on ourselves. Yeah. So a lot of the journey is unlearning that. You've talked a lot about the baby steps. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a really important thing. I know that was really important in your journey. And I wonder, just as we'll come to a close in a few minutes, but I wonder for the women who are listening are like, where do I start? We've got this whole theme of baby steps you've been talking about, right? And then we're going to talk a little bit about where you're going and where you are now. But tell us about baby steps. Tell us about the idea of starting the path. Like, what does that mean? And why it's okay just to take a baby step and not like burn everything down and shake everything up and jump off a cliff, and like, why is the solution for you found in baby steps?
I think I needed to learn about myself, and that you can only do. You can't kind of go back into your past and recognize where your patterns were formed without doing it one step at a time. And that's why for me, it was really important to just trust the process and the course and like the steps. And at first it's kind of like, why am I doing this? And there's a lot of uncomfortableness. But until I unpacked a lot of that stuff, I couldn't move forward. And so it's too much to take on all at once and like unpack it all and like, especially in a 12-week course. But it's also about, for me, the first few times, I would be late on something or I wouldn't do something the right way, or, I had all that air quotes, judgment. And, when I just did one small thing and checked and said, hey, I completed it, done is better than perfect, and setting realistic goals. Because a lot of us strong, capable women make a huge list and our success is defining getting it all done, but that's overwhelming. I think I signed up for, I'm going to do this exercise and I'm going to do that. And I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And I started off with like this list of things I was going to accomplish. And then it was like, oh my God, I can't. So I just really learned to just set out one goal a day or a week and accomplish that goal and feel successful, and then just there's no time limit, right? Like, you don't need to do this. You just set a path, take one small step forward and celebrate it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the celebration piece is huge, and of course the baby steps piece is huge, and this is what we talk about so much in this journey, in this course. And what I hear, and that I want to really reflect for everybody, I hear so much compassion in what you're saying, self-compassion. So like the old part of you that's like nothing is ever enough, nothing is ever good enough, you set the mile-long to-do list, you never get it done, and then you beat yourself up for it, and you set unrealistic expectations.
Yeah.
And what I hear has been a huge shift for you is, well, that way is an unsustainable way to live, and it's actually contributing to the burnout and the misery. And so what if I do it differently? What if the different way is I take a small step every day towards the life that I want? I know that that's enough, right? I celebrate that small step when I take it, right? And so it's just readjusting. There's that silly quote, how do you eat an elephant? I don't know why this is a quote. It's horrible. But how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? And it really is learning to adjust that brain, that part in our brain that's like, I'm never good enough unless I'm doing all the things, versus, oh, I know that progress is actually built on small baby steps every day. And that's a big shift. You said something at the beginning that I want to loop back to, because I think it's really powerful about your journey. And we haven't really talked so much about where you are right now, but you said that I defined myself I defined who I am by my work. That's the way you were before. And we talked about you were burnt out and you and your husband were roommates and nothing felt joyful and life felt flat. And what you said, who you are now, is that you said, I'm living a real life. I'm enjoying my life. I know who I am and I can be who I am in my life. And I know what you mean by that, because I've gone through this journey, right? From where you were, from where I was to where I am, and you've gone through this journey. But for a woman who has no idea what that feels like to live her life, she may want that, but she may not know what that even means of like, I feel like I'm going through the motions of life, which is what we were doing before. And now it's like, I'm living my life. I'm in my life. I enjoy my life. I love my life. What feels different to you about life now, that you're not on that endless hamster wheel, that you're not, what feels different now that you're living your life?
I've changed my focal point. I've changed my focal point to, I still work hard at my job. I do my best every single day, but that's not who I am. It doesn't define me, right? And so my focus is now on getting back to some hobbies. I did a orientation for a pet rescue the other day, and I'm going to do that. And, learning to ride a horse, and, just spending time and concentrated time and quality time with my family and my husband, and, all those things that actually bring me energy and joy and revitalization. And that is what is important. And not being defined by, I no longer care about being at a certain level at my job or accomplishing the next level or getting to the next part of the ladder, because that is not how I want to live my life.
So beautiful.
Yeah.
When you just, so we know where you were when you started. Did you know, and maybe you did know, did you know that these were your interests, these were your hobbies, these were your things, or did you have to figure that out when you were in the course? Like, did you know it, but you weren't doing it then? Or were you not even sure about it? Because, right, both of those things are possible.
I didn't think I had time for it,
Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't important. Um, and I didn't really realize what my actual life purpose is. And I learned that I'm doing it while I'm working, but I'm not doing it for my life or my living. So that is, really changed my perspective. And I'm still doing the same job, I'm, working hard but really enjoying that part of it. Mentoring people and really helping and kind of trying to pivot to a mentorship role. And so that has really changed my, joy at work, and really, looking to find that, way to fulfill my life purpose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Was there anything in the course particularly that catalyzed that for you? Anything you want to share with anyone?
Yeah, I think just part of the course is really to listen and write down your dreams and aspirations and organize it in a way that you start to make a plan. The dream wheel for me is like keep it close to my heart, and it just really, again, back to the steps, right? Making the list of things you want to accomplish, but breaking it down into a realistic timeline and bite-sized pieces, and like celebrating one small step forward to accomplish, those dreams. I think all of that, we don't take time to reflect and write down. When you write it down, it becomes real. And that for me was really a very emotional experience to take that time, but also I feel so much lighter and I feel so much happier and sunnier after doing that.
Yeah, yeah. Lighter and happier and sunnier, and we can see that for those of us who are watching you on video. And I know that that light and sunshine is filtering into every part of life for you.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder, let me just see if there's anything else that I want to ask you about. Um, if there were one piece of advice that you could give that old you, the you before she got on her breakthrough call, before she went on this journey, who was drowning. I mean, she really was. She was really drowning in some way. What would you want her to know?
That work is not the definition of who you are, and that you are worthy of time and space for yourself.
Did everybody hear that? Work does not define who you are, and you are worthy of time and energy and space for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for sharing your hard earned wisdom, Katherine. You are a light, you were a leader and a light in the group, and it was an incredible honor to watch that emerge. And I'm just so grateful that you shared today with everyone. So thank you, thank you.
You're welcome. And I have to say, I think I've said this to you before. I can't be more grateful for you. I can't be more grateful for the amazing women who are such an important part of the journey. And just this experience has been life changing. So thank you.
It's my honor, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. This is why I was put on this earth, to go through the whole journey that I went through, to
Yeah.
then be able to pass the torch to women like you. And I know you'll do it for other women, as you already are. As you already
Yeah.
are.
Absolutely.
So, ladies, for those of you who are listening, if there's any part of you that's like, maybe I need this, maybe I need support. Look, the truth is Katherine and I did not know each other when she booked a breakthrough call, right? It was our first conversation,
Mhm.
and that was the baby step she took that day, right?
Yeah.
And so you can take this baby step for yourself. I'm going to put the link right here below, juliesantiago.com/talk. And what we'll do on that call, it'll be me or it'll be an amazing breakthrough coach on my team. We will talk to you for about an hour. And we'll talk about what's working and what's not working. And we'll really be honest with you. If we feel like we can take you on a journey like we did with Katherine and get you just these incredible results and help give you your life back, we will tell you how we can do that. And if we don't feel like this program's right or we're the right ones, we're going to point you in a different direction and give you all of the resources that we have, right? So either way, you'll walk away with value. Katherine, I said this to you at the beginning of our call. My intention is really that one woman hear herself in you. And I just honor your vulnerability and your willingness to share your journey so openly. And I'm so glad that that woman, all those months ago, the one who was working and lost, had the courage to take the baby step. So
Mhm.
thank you so much.
My pleasure.
All right, ladies. So for those of you who want to book your free breakthrough call, go to juliesantiago.com/talk. It'll be me or someone on my team. We've got a couple of spots open in the next few days. And thank you for joining. Thank you for listening. And of course, we'll be back with another show very soon. All right. Much love. Take care. Bye,
Bye.
everybody.